Hi, I'm Keffy Kehrli, and I'm in the genetics program. My title is Evolution, Comparing More Than Just the Sequences of Our Genes. This is the reserve section of a library. You can think of your DNA as being like the books in this reserve section. It's full of really important information that you don't want to get damaged. All those sequences, the GATCs, all those Gattaca letters. But what do you do if you need to actually use that information? You can't take the library with you. So you actually go in and you take photocopies of the 10 pages or so that you need. Well, it turns out that the cells in your body do something similar. They use RNA, which is very similar to DNA, and make copies of one gene at a time and use that, leaving the rest of your information right where it was and taking those photocopies, however many it needs, out to do whatever it needs to do, make protein or the stuff that makes you you. Okay, great. But what does that have to do with evolution? It turns out if you look at the reserve sections of different species, in a lot of cases, they're very similar. You might have heard that we're about 99% similar to chimpanzees when you look at the sequence of our DNA. Well, we're also about 85% similar to mice. And I don't know about you, but no matter how much I like cheese, I'm not a mouse. So when we're looking at that, it's really important to try and figure out, is all of the differences between mice and humans in that 15%, or is there more going on? It turns out the different species also make different numbers of photocopies of the genes that they have in common, and that's what I'm interested in. In my dissertation, I'm taking sort of a 10,000-foot view of the number of photocopies the different species take and looking at the number of photocopies in 300 different species to try and figure out if there's any big rules about how this interacts and how this changes different species and how that all plays into how we've evolved. Although some evolutionary biologists are really focused on those 1% of differences, I want to know, is this a major thing? Are these changes what we really need to be focusing on? So there is data from 1 or 2 studies where people have looked at 1 or 2 species. But I'm taking data from all of the different studies and looking at 300 species at once and putting them into these mathematical models to try and figure out if there's about as much change as we'd expect or if there's less. Now, you might be asking, why do I care? So clinical studies actually use animals to test life-saving drugs, like mice. And the more we know about how we're related to them and how we're different, the more we're going to be able to understand the results of those clinical studies. But beyond that, this comes down to knowing how all life on Earth evolved over about 3.5 billion years. And honestly, I just think that's neat. Thank you.